Pérez and Selena shared a once-in-a-lifetime love story. Yet, decades after her tragic death, Chris has broken his silence about Yolanda Saldivar, and the truth he reveals could forever change how fans remember the final days of the Tejano Queen. If you've ever wondered how Chris really feels about the woman who ended Selena's life, or what new turmoil Yolanda might be stirring even now, then keep watching. By the end of this video, you'll have an in-depth understanding of the heartbreak and anger Chris has carried all these years, the explosive accusations he's making, and why he's speaking out so forcefully after so much time. You'll also gain fresh insights into what really happened behind the scenes in those final, fateful weeks of Selena's life, and why Yolanda's name continues to haunt not just Chris, but the entire Quintanilla family and fan community. Chris and Selena's love story wasn't a typical celebrity romance. They met as talented teenagers in a band that traveled through dusty roads across Texas, playing everything from intimate family events to rowdy Tejano clubs. Selena's father, Abraham Quintanilla, was always vigilant, determined that nothing and no one would derail Selena's chance at stardom. Chris was hired as a guitarist, and his raw talent quickly found harmony with Selena's bright stage presence. Long bus rides, late-night rehearsals, and an unspoken mutual respect led to a relationship that initially existed in secret, hidden from Abraham's protective gaze. That secrecy only deepened their bond because it felt like them against the world. Fans know how that story blossomed into a marriage that, though it started amid familial disapproval, soon became one of the cornerstones of Selena's emotional support system. Selena and Chris had that once-in-a-generation synergy. She was the rising star of Tejano music, revered for her effervescent charisma, boundary-breaking fashion, and bilingual artistry that united fans across language barriers. He was the quiet rocker, equally passionate about music, who found a sense of belonging beside Selena. As time passed, Chris became more than just her husband. He was a key collaborator, encouraging her to explore new rock elements, guitar riffs, and influences that might resonate with broader audiences. Together, they dreamed of Selena becoming a crossover star who could conquer English-language pop while still honoring her Tejano roots. Everything seemed to be on an unstoppable upward trajectory. Selena had just won a Grammy, her boutiques were expanding, and her fan club had grown to tens of thousands of devoted members. That's where Yolanda Saldivar came in. At first, Yolanda was nothing more than a fan, someone who claimed to admire Selena's music and wanted to do her part by running an official fan club. Because Selena was known for her warmth and inclusivity, she welcomed Yolanda's enthusiasm. Over time, Yolanda embedded herself in Selena's professional and personal spheres, becoming a manager at Selena's boutiques and a confidant who traveled with her. Yet, behind that facade of helpfulness and loyalty, Yolanda carried a troubling streak of possessiveness. Employees at the boutiques reported that she was harsh and controlling whenever Selena wasn't around, and that money and merchandise started going missing. Alarm bells were ringing, but Selena, who always tried to see the best in people, wasn't quick to believe that Yolanda could be acting maliciously. Selena's father, Abraham, became suspicious first, investigating the financial discrepancies and learning that Yolanda might have forged checks to siphon money from fan club and boutique accounts. Chris had his suspicions too, though he wasn't as involved in the business side. He was focused on music, on supporting Selena's creative dreams, and on building a life where they could balance stardom with something resembling normalcy at home. Even so, he was fully aware that Selena's father felt deeply uneasy about Yolanda's growing power in Selena's world. Tensions started simmering as Abraham, Suzette, and even some other family members noticed Yolanda's manipulative behavior. Selena, meanwhile, stood at a crossroads. She loved her father and trusted his judgment, but she also felt loyal to someone she believed was a friend. The friction between these conflicting loyalties would ultimately set the stage for unimaginable tragedy. When the news of Yolanda's theft became too blatant to ignore, a confrontation was inevitable. Abraham discovered that Yolanda had allegedly stolen over $60,000 through forged checks. According to various accounts, Chris was present or aware of the aftermath of that tense meeting in early March 1995, where Abraham, Selena, and Suzette demanded answers from Yolanda. Yolanda grew emotional, defensive, and refused to admit any real wrongdoing. She blamed everything on unscrupulous fans, incompetent staff, or simply misunderstandings. But the evidence was too strong, and Selena's trust in Yolanda started to crack. Still, Selena found it difficult to sever ties immediately. Yolanda controlled important documents related to the boutiques, fan club membership lists, and even sensitive financial records, details Selena needed, especially as she prepared to expand her brand into Mexico. Looking back, Chris has spoken about how Selena's reluctance to slam the door on Yolanda had tragic consequences. Although Chris was never one to demand or throw around ultimatums, he strongly urged Selena to be cautious. According to close friends, Chris believed that the entire family should be on the same page, cutting Yolanda off completely. But Selena, known for her big heart and unwavering desire to see the good in people, hesitated to believe that someone who'd been close to her for so long could turn violent. In the weeks leading up to the tragedy, Yolanda's behavior became more erratic and concerning. She purchased a firearm, claiming it was for self-defense. She began fabricating stories about being assaulted in Mexico, telling Selena she was in physical danger and needed Selena's help. Some speculate that Chris privately worried that Yolanda was not just a thief but potentially unhinged. Yet Selena, despite her father's warnings and Chris's apprehensions, tried to handle the matter gently. She wanted the documents back and hoped to move on without creating a larger public scandal. Chris couldn't have foreseen that these final days would lead to Selena's death, but he's hinted in interviews that the tension in those weeks weighed heavily on him. He was anxious to protect Selena, though he realized she was a grown woman making decisions for her business. He didn't want to be overbearing. Still, he did what he could to keep a watchful eye. On March 31st, 1995, Selena met Yolanda at a Days Inn motel in Corpus Christi, hoping to retrieve missing paperwork once and for all. Chris wasn't there. He often wonders if he could have changed the outcome had he been present. Selena was shot in the back while trying to flee, naming Yolanda as her attacker with her last words. Chris was at home when he received the call that Selena had been taken to the hospital. By the time he arrived, the worst had happened. The woman he adored, his creative partner, and the person he planned to spend his life with was gone. In the immediate aftermath, Chris was catatonic with grief. The man who had once played guitar with a wild abandon stood broken, unable to imagine a future where Selena wasn't by his side. People who visited him in those early days recall him sitting in their shared house, surrounded by the personal touches Selena had left behind. Her clothes, her notes, the half-finished plans for her upcoming crossover album. He barely ate or slept, replaying those final weeks and wishing he had found a way to keep Selena from going to meet Yolanda that morning. It's a guilt he would wrestle with for years, despite everyone telling him there was nothing more he could have done. For a long time, Chris chose silence over public statements. He allowed Abraham and the rest of Selena's family to lead the fight for justice, dealing with the trial, the press, and the legions of devastated fans. Chris couldn't bring himself to speak about Yolanda, not because he lacked opinions, but because he was in too much pain to address the darkest chapter of his life. Instead, he tried to focus on keeping Selena's memory alive in his own quiet ways. He wrote songs in her honor, poured his grief into his guitar, and tried to grapple with the shock of losing his best friend, wife, and muse. When Yolanda was sentenced to life in prison, Chris felt a bittersweet sense of closure, but it was nowhere near enough to fill the gaping void Selena's absence had created. Over the years, reporters, television hosts, and documentary makers tried to get Chris to open up. He would occasionally appear in tributes or short interviews, offering glimpses of his ongoing sorrow and love for Selena, but rarely delving into the specifics of Yolanda or her new claims. As time passed, rumors swirled about Yolanda seeking parole or trying to profit from Selena's death via interviews, unpublished diaries, or alleged documentary projects. Recently, a fresh wave of controversy erupted, sparked by whispers that Yolanda might be preparing to release new documents or statements under the guise of secrets she's withheld for nearly 3 decades. Word got back to Chris that Yolanda might be painting herself as a misunderstood victim who accidentally pulled the trigger. According to insiders, this was the final straw for Chris. The man who had held back for so long, preferring not to feed the media frenzy, decided enough was enough. He was ready to break his silence, not just to stand up for Selena's memory, but also to prevent Yolanda from rewriting history in any way that could taint Selena's legacy. What exactly has Chris said that's so explosive? While he hasn't blasted every detail across social media, close friends and some interviews suggest he's no longer mincing words about Yolanda's intentions. He's reportedly spoken of her manipulative streak, describing how she thrived on holding power over Selena's finances and daily schedule. He's highlighted the stark contrast between Yolanda's public persona, always weeping about how much she adored Selena, and the behind-the-scenes reality, where Yolanda's controlling nature created chaos for boutique employees and even stoked tension within Selena's inner circle. Chris is also adamant that Yolanda's claim the gun went off by accident is patently false. He believes, like many, that she purchased the weapon with harm in mind, especially after the confrontations over the stolen money. He's pointed out that Selena's final words, identifying Yolanda as her assailant, leave little room for doubt about Yolanda's responsibility. By breaking his silence, Chris is essentially warning fans that Yolanda's attempts to recast herself as anything other than a perpetrator are manipulative and disrespectful to Selena's memory. Moreover, Chris has said he's not interested in giving Yolanda further airtime or publicity. The only reason he's come forward is to protect Selena's name from exploitation. That's the word he often uses: exploitation. He views any docuseries or interview special involving Yolanda's side of the story as an insult to the sorrow and trauma Selena's family, friends, and fans have endured. He wants fans to stand guard against sensationalist headlines and to remember the facts. A disgruntled, obsessive woman who was caught stealing ended Selena's life in a single horrific moment. One of the most heartbreaking things Chris reveals is the ongoing sense of what if he lives with. Although he never blamed Selena, he cherished her independent spirit. He can't shake the feeling that, if he just pressed a little harder or insisted on accompanying her that morning, maybe she'd still be here. This guilt weighs heavy, though everyone around him assures him he did all he could. Selena was an adult capable of making her own choices, and there's no way he could have predicted Yolanda would pull a gun. But when you lose someone you love so deeply, rational thoughts don't always soothe the heart. Chris confesses to having nightmares about that day, imagining scenarios in which he arrives in time to push Selena out of the bullet's path, or forcibly keeps her home until the documents can be retrieved another way. For fans, Chris's new candor is both illuminating and deeply painful. Many have longed to hear his take on the situation, suspecting that his heartbreak ran deeper than the media could ever convey. Now that he's speaking out, it confirms what they feared, that Yolanda's presence still casts a shadow decades later. Some fans worry that Yolanda's rumored docuseries or any future public statements might try to twist the narrative further, painting Selena's final days in a skewed light. Chris's warnings are a plea for fans to remain vigilant, to remember that the real Selena was a radiant, generous soul, and to understand that the woman who betrayed her has every reason to shape the story to her own advantage. Chris is also urging fans not to let Yolanda overshadow Selena's legacy with repeated controversies. For him, the best way to honor Selena is to celebrate her music, continue supporting charities she cared about, and keep her memory alive in a positive, uplifting way. The Tejano Queen isn't defined by the last day of her life, but by the countless days she spent lighting up stages, connecting with fans, and pushing cultural boundaries. The crossover album she never got to complete, the fashion lines she was developing, the philanthropic endeavors she wanted to champion. Those are the dreams Chris says he wants the world to focus on. People who have spoken to Chris also say he's found a measure of peace in making music again. He's played in various bands over the years, and he's released tributes that nod to Selena's influence while also showcasing his own style. It's a balancing act, preserving the past without becoming enslaved to it, remembering Selena without letting sorrow paralyze him. But in stepping forward now, in forcefully condemning Yolanda and her tactics, Chris seems to have taken on the role of a guardian at the gate. He wants to ensure that no matter what twists Yolanda might attempt to spin, the fans know the truth, that Selena was the victim of a cold betrayal, not an accident, that Selena's trusting heart and compassion were weaponized against her by someone who leveraged her position for personal gain. Some insiders suggest Chris could go even further, There's been talk of him possibly collaborating with the Quintanilla family on projects designed to spread awareness about the dangers of exploitation and the importance of vigilance for rising stars who trust their inner circle. While the family dynamic between Chris and the Quintanillas has had its tensions in the past, especially over legal matters and estate rights, they all share one unbreakable bond: their love for Selena. If Chris, Abraham, Suzette, and the entire family unite in a renewed effort to debunk any of Yolanda's propaganda, it could form a powerful front that keeps the focus on Selena's brilliance, not the darkness that ended her life. Fans are already rallying behind Chris, showing support on social media whenever he makes a statement about Selena or offers fresh glimpses into their life together. Pictures of them hugging backstage, writing music side by side, or simply laughing in candid moments have taken on new poignancy. Chris sometimes shares these memories to remind people that beyond the tragedy, there was a world of love, laughter, and shared ambitions. That's the Selena he continues to carry in his heart, and that's the Selena he wants fans to remember. By breaking his silence in such a definitive way, Chris is giving passionate followers of Selena a chance to understand the emotional hurricane he's withstood for nearly 3 decades. He's telling them, in essence, that Yolanda's manipulations didn't end when she was imprisoned. She might still crave attention, perhaps even hoping to shift blame or appear sympathetic. But Chris sees her actions as a final insult to the woman he loved. This is why he calls on fans to be smart about the content they consume, especially if it comes directly or indirectly from Yolanda. He doesn't want the darkness of those final moments to overshadow the light that Selena's music and memory continue to shine on the world. Moreover, Chris's revelations serve as a warning to future artists. Selena was a superstar in the making, a beacon of cultural pride, yet even she wasn't immune to trusting the wrong person. Her tragic end underscores the need for proper checks and balances, whether it's strict financial oversight or ensuring your team is thoroughly vetted. Chris's regret is that they didn't see the warning signs sooner or act on them more decisively. In hindsight, the pattern of lies, the stolen money, the weird, controlling behavior, these were massive red flags. By the time Selena realized the depth of Yolanda's betrayal, it was too late. Chris ends his reflections with a note of hope, however. He emphasizes that Selena's memory continues to bring people together, whether through tributes, memorial concerts, or even spontaneous dance parties set to Biddy Biddy Bom Bom. Fans are finding ways to keep Selena alive in their hearts. Chris believes that as long as people remember her warmth, kindness, and musical genius, Yolanda can never truly win. No matter how many times she attempts to resurface, the love that fans hold for Selena surpasses any scandal or rumor. That's why, even in the midst of all the heartbreak, Chris remains grateful. He sees how Selena's story has inspired multiple generations of young Latina singers to embrace their roots, break industry barriers, and follow their artistic visions. He sees how entire families bond over Selena's hits, passing her music down like an heirloom. He finds solace in knowing that the global community recognizes Selena for her gifts, her spirit, and her cultural impact, rather than focusing on the one moment of violence that ended her life. For those of you who've stayed with this story until now, Chris wants you to know that this is why he speaks out. Not to stir up drama, but to protect the memory of the woman he loved from any distortion or exploitation. He's calling on fans to stand strong against sensationalized claims Yolanda might make, to remember the countless testimonies that show the shooting was no accident, and to uphold the truth that Selena was taken from the world in an act of calculated betrayal. In some of his more vulnerable confessions, Chris admits that the pain of losing Selena will never fully go away, but he also shares that letting that pain consume him won't bring her back. Instead, he channels that energy into cherishing every good memory, supporting tributes, and stepping forward whenever necessary to ensure that her legacy is honored. For years, silence was his shield against the media frenzy. Now, by breaking that silence, he's reaffirming that he won't allow Yolanda to shape the narrative of Selena's final moments or to hijack the public discourse around Selena's life. So when you see headlines about Yolanda's supposed new revelations, remember Chris's testimony. Remember that this is a woman who was caught with incriminating financial evidence, who attempted to lure Selena to isolated locations under false pretenses, and who chased the young star down a corridor with a loaded weapon. Remember that Selena, in her last act, named Yolanda as her assailant. And remember that Chris, after decades of quiet suffering, is telling you now, as directly as he can, that any attempt by Yolanda to claim innocence or spin the story is an affront to Selena's memory. If you're a passionate fan of Selena, understand that Chris's heartbreak is intertwined with your own. The entire world lost a singular talent in 1995, someone whose voice and spirit transcended cultural barriers. Chris lost not only a superstar bandmate, but the love of his life. Today, by breaking his silence and making it abundantly clear how he feels about Yolanda Saldivar, Chris is taking a step toward ensuring Selena's story remains pure, untainted by those who might exploit it. He's doing what he can to protect her, even in death, much as he tried to protect her in life. The best way for all of us to honor Selena is by remembering her boundless energy, her generosity toward fans, and her dedication to forging unity across cultures. Play her music, dance with abandon, share her story with those who might not know how transformative she was to Latin music. And if you find yourself lured by headlines promising new secrets from Yolanda, recall Chris's words, "She's said enough." Selena's magic lies in the songs she left behind, the philanthropic work she never finished, and the dreams she planted in the minds of aspiring artists everywhere. Ultimately, Chris Perez's final message is that while Yolanda stole Selena's life, she can't steal the love fans carry in their hearts. With this renewed commitment to speaking the truth, Chris is shielding Selena's legacy from being hijacked yet again. His words are a reminder that, in the face of heartbreak, the collective devotion to Selena remains an unbreakable force that no betrayal can undermine, and that, perhaps, is the ultimate victory. Selena's music, her memory, and the love people hold for her will forever eclipse the darkness that tried to take it all away. For more of the latest news, check out this video.